Welcome to another episode of Tutorials with Ike. So now I'm going to continue with the business communication past questions we are solving. That's 2024. And we are now on section B. So we did section A in the last video. So this is section B. And for section B, you are going to answer 15 questions. And that one is just short answers. Do you get it? So it's not going to be any long thing. You are just going to fill in the answers. You get it? So there are 15 questions. So let's start with question 1. So question 1 says, dash is communication intended to influence choice. Now, anytime you see influence choice, let's put to your mind that it's persuasion. You persuade someone when you want to influence their choice, or you want to make them do something that they wouldn't have originally done. So that's persuasion or persuasive communication. So that's for number 1. Now I move on to number 2. Number 2 says tailoring a message to a specific reader is described as dash. Tailoring a message to a specific reader is described as dash. So the answer is adaptation. Adaptation means you trying to change your message to suit the audience. It's more like you're adapting to the audience. So the answer is adaptation. So tailoring a message to a specific reader is described as adaptation. Now I move on to number 3. Number 3 says the root of the word communication in Latin is dash, which means to share or to make common. So the correct answer is communicare. C-O-M-M-U-N-I-C-A-I-R-E. That's the Latin word of communication. You also see it in the slides. So that's for number 3. Now I move on to number 4. Number 4 says dash refers to communication among business parties or persons for the purpose of filling business related tasks. This one is very simple. The answer is business communication, which is the name of the course. So yes, business communication refers to communication among business parties or persons for the purpose of fulfilling business related tasks. So that's number 4. Now I move on to number 5. Number 5 says dash communication refers to communication within oneself. Communication within oneself is known as intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication. So that's number 5. So intrapersonal communication refers to communication within oneself. So we move on to number 6. Number 6 says dash means converting the idea into words or gestures that will convey meaning. So converting the idea into words or gestures that will convey meaning is the same as encoding. So if you have an idea or something in mind, but then you want to tell someone, the process of you doing that is called encoding. So encoding means converting the idea into words or gestures that convey meaning. Now I move on to number 7. Number 7 says dash is the communication where the message or information is exchanged through spoken words. Dash is the communication where the message or information is exchanged through spoken words. Now, anytime you see spoken words, then just put your mind as oral communication. You get it, oral communication. If you just see through words, then it is verbal communication. But if you see spoken words, then it's oral communication. So the answer is oral communication. So oral communication is the communication where the message or information is exchanged through spoken words. So that's for number 7. So move on to number 8. Number 8 says formal messages that flow from subordinates to supervisors or managers are known as dash. So the answer is upwards communication. You get it? So communication from the down to the top, or the subordinates to the managers or the supervisors, is called upwards communication. So that's for number 8. Now I move on to number 9. Number 9 says dash can be defined as the simultaneous identical understanding of the content and the intent of a message. So the answer is effective communication. So effective communication is where you are communicating with someone and it's actually being productive. So the simultaneous identical understanding. You guys are both understanding each other. You get it? So that's effective communication. So effective communication can be defined as the simultaneous identical understanding of the content and intent of a message. So in example, if you are asked to explain it, this is how you explain it. It's also in the slides. So yes, so that's for number 9. Now I move on to number 10. Number 10 says dash refers to simplified and often an inaccurate belief about the characteristics of particular groups of people. So the answer is stereotype. Stereotype. So stereotype refers to simplified and often an inaccurate belief about the characteristics of particular groups of people. Now I move on to number 11. Number 11 says spoken or written expressions employed to convey ideas and feelings best describes dash. So the answer is language. This one is very self-explanatory. Spoken or written expressions employed to convey ideas and feelings. So that's language. So that's for number 11. Now I move on to number 12. Number 12 says the medium through which the message is transmitted is known as the dash. The medium through which the message is transmitted is known as the dash. So the answer is channel. Yes, so that's for number 12. Now I move on to number 13. Number 13 says dash refers to the signs and codes exchanged during the communication process, which can be verbal or non-verbal. So the answer is message. Yes, message. So message refers to the signs and codes exchanged during the communication process, which can be verbal or non-verbal. So that's message. So that's for number 13. Now let's move on to number 14. Number 14 says The advantage of oral communication that allows one to quickly respond to questions is dash. The advantage of oral communication that allows one to quickly respond to questions is dash. So the answer is instantaneous feedback. You get it? That's the advantage of oral communication that quickly allows one to respond to message. So that's instantaneous feedback. So that's for number 14. So we move on to number 15, which is the last question for section B. It says, to be successful at persuasive speaking, one must adapt one's argument to the dash needs of listeners. So the answer is psychological. If you want to persuade someone, you have to know the person's psychological needs so that you can use that one to persuade the person. You get it? So that's the psychological needs of the listener. So that's the last question for section B. So 15 questions, and you're supposed to answer all of them. So we move on to the last section, which is section C. So for section C, you are given 3 questions. You're supposed to answer 2 out of 3. So these ones are theory questions. So I'm just going to read them briefly so that we go through them. So the first one under question C. UPSA is hosting a symposium for freshmen this year to discuss the difficulties posed by climate change. Give 5 forms of noise that the communicator has to be aware of in order to maintain effective communication. Your answer should not be more than 150 words. So now anytime they ask you a question like this, they are just asking you for the 5 forms of noise. Do you get it? But once they've given you a preamble like UPSA is hosting a symposium and all that, you have to tailor your answers to the question. You get it? So you add that UPSA or that, you get it. So when you're answering it, you'll be like, oh, UPSA has to do this, UPSA has to do that. Anytime they give you the preamble so that you'll be able to get your answer correct. So the question is just asking for 5 forms of noise. So I'm not going to explain everything, but for the 5 forms of noise, you have physical noise. That's like if the person has a hearing disability or something. So when you're answering it, you just be like, if the freshmen have hearing disabilities or that. So you try and tailor your answer. So we have the physical noise as 1. Then 2, we have psychological noise. So psychological noise is like you choosing what to listen to. Do you get it? So it can involve you disliking the speaker and all that. So that's what psychological noise. Then we have semantic noise. Semantic noise is you being unfamiliar with the words. You get it? So noise is just anything that is disrupting the message. So if you are unfamiliar with the words, you'll not easily be able to understand the message. So that's for semantic noise. Then we have non-verbal distractions. So those can be like unusual dressing, an unfamiliar haircut and all that. So that's for non-verbal distractions. And lastly, we have technical noise. So that can be a problem by them, maybe the speaker and all that. That's like a technical challenge. So technical noise. So these are 5 forms of noise that you could write in case this question pops up. So we move on to number 2, still under section C. So it says, as a university student preparing to enter the job market for the first time, what essential factors should you consider to ensure that your resume effectively reflects your skills and experience? So it's just saying that what should you add to your resume to make sure that it effectively reflects your skills and experience. So you can talk about clear structure. You have to make sure it's structured properly. You can also talk about some skills that you have. If it's communication skills and all that, problem solving skills, you can also add that. So you can also talk about it being concise, not adding too much information and all that. And you can also talk about you tailoring your resume to ensure that it meets the job description. You get it? So if they're, let's say, looking for a teacher or something and you've not even been a teacher before, you can try and tailor your resume so that to meet the job description. So yes, so that's for number 2. So we move on to number 3, which is the last question. So it says, a new line of soap product is being introduced to the market by the Unilever group of companies. Identify 4 factors to consider while persuading your audience as part of brand marketing activities. So you're just asking for 4 factors to consider while persuading your audience. So you can first talk about you targeting the needs of your audience. You can also talk about the opinion of key listeners. Do you get it? People who hold influence. Then you can also talk about the psychological needs of the listeners. Then lastly, you can talk about the credibility of the speaker. Do you get it? To try and make sure that you don't have any criminal record or something because they're going to listen to all that. So anytime they give you this question, that's how you go about it. So for section C, you're going to answer 2 out of 3. So you choose the one that will best favor you. I think I chose 1 and 3. So you can also look through then the one that best works for you. So yeah, that's how the business communication paper looks like. So you have section A, which involves 50 questions, 50 multiple choice questions. Then section B, which involves 15 questions and you're answering, or then section C, 3 questions and you choose 2. So yes, that's the end of the business communication paper. So in case you don't understand anything, feel free to comment. And in case you also see me on campus or something, you can ask me for any clarifications or anything. And I'll be there to help. I'll see you in the next video.